From a 6.8 magnitude earthquake that caused this bridge to collapse in Taiwan, and a ghost town in northern China that was supposed to be a knockoff of New York City, to the ruins of an old railroad bridge in Pennsylvania that fell victim to a freak tornado, and a dam failure in Italy that wiped several small villages off the map. Here are 10 mega projects that went horribly wrong. McKean County is a small rural community in northeastern Pennsylvania. It was founded in the early 19th century as a crucial hub for oil and timber. Since there were no heavy-duty trucks back then, they had to rely on railroads to move goods around the country. In 1882, Tom Kane, then president of the New York, Lake Erie, and Western Railway, decided to build a branch through McKean County toward the coal fields in Elk County. The only thing standing in his way was Kinsua Creek, a 26-mile tributary of the Allegheny River. Kane had two options: build a bridge over the creek or lay 8 extra miles of expensive tracks around it. He opted for the cheaper and faster option, but that's not to say it was poorly built. When the bridge opened later that year, it was the tallest of its kind. It stood 301 feet tall and was supported by 20 A-shaped towers. It was billed as the 8th wonder of the world, up there with King Kong and Niagara Falls. Trains got heavier as the years passed. In 1900, they dismantled and rebuilt the bridge with steel, allowing it to carry heavier trains. It lasted another 59 years. Then, in 1963, Pennsylvania bought it as a centerpiece for the new state park. Plans to restore the bridge kicked off in 2002. They didn't expect it to carry trains anymore, but it would be nice for people to walk across and take pictures. Then, on July 21st of 2003, as workers were packing up, a tornado touched down and struck the Kinsua. Wind speeds topped around 94 miles per hour, enough to rip the rusted iron foundations from the ground. Towers 10 and 11 fell first, followed by 12, 13, and 14. The storm left the historic structure in utter ruins. A massive amount of the bridge had completely collapsed and was left strewn about the valley below. When the bridge was designed, the engineers did not consider major uplift in their calculations. We're guessing taking a direct hit from a tornado never even crossed their minds. During renovation work in the early 2000s, workers had the chance to do something that could have saved the bridge. They debated replacing the iron anchor bolts connecting the bridge to the concrete footings below with new, more durable steel bolts. For whatever reason, they decided to keep the iron bolts. This turned out to be a huge mistake, as these bolts were the exact point of failure. After the collapse, Pennsylvania decided not to rebuild the bridge. Instead, the ruins serve as an ode to Mother Nature's raw power. They did, however, build a $4.3 million skywalk extending over the Kinsua Gorge. You can walk out to where the bridge collapsed and look down at the trees some 200 feet below. China currently holds a record they'd rather not keep. They're home to the world's tallest ghost scraper. Golden Finance 117 is a 1,957-foot unoccupied mass of steel. It stands 128 stories above ground, 117 of which are reserved for hotels, apartments, and commercial space. As of today, all of them sit vacant, and the project has entered construction limbo. Let's turn the clocks back to 2008. Several Chinese districts are fighting to house billionaire Pan Sutong's Golden Metropolitan Plan. He envisioned a mixed-use luxury development outside of Tianjin that catered to the ultra-wealthy. Golden 117 was to be its centerpiece. The Xiqing district ultimately won the bid, and construction began in 2008. The building would be among the tallest in the world. They planned for a 3-story, diamond-shaped observation deck at the very top. From about 2,000 feet in the air, you could eat, swim, and play polo. If you had the cash, of course. Golden 117 crashed head-first into the Great Recession. Construction halted and then resumed in 2011. They hit another snag when the Chinese stock market crashed in 2015. Then, in 2018, China made building anything beyond 1,640 feet illegal. By then, Golden 117 had reached 1,957 feet, making it the 5th tallest building in the world. Legally, they couldn't add another inch. As of 2024, the building remains unfinished and unoccupied. It's a 2,000-foot ghost town and holds the Guinness World Record for tallest unoccupied building, which is a nice way of saying the biggest waste of space. Fréjus is a small commune on the Réran River in southeastern France. Today, it's home to roughly 57,000 people. Few of them are old enough to remember the horrors of World War II. Most remember a different tragedy that occurred 14 years later. The Réran River flowed above the city. In April of 1952, construction began on a curved arch-type dam to provide drinking and irrigation water to the town and surrounding region. Other designs were considered, but the arch-type was the cheapest option by far. They finished in 1954, and the dam was full by 1959. Ideally, it would regulate the river's rate of flow while storing 50 million cubic meters of water for domestic and agricultural use. It stood over 200 feet high and 728 feet long. The concrete wall was 22 feet thick at the base and 5 feet thick at the rim, making the Malpasset Dam the thinnest in the world. We call that a red flag. While surveying the land in 1946, they overlooked a tectonic fault line downstream from the dam. It prevented natural groundwater from flowing away from the dam. Think of it like shaking a soda can. The pressure kept building and eventually unseated the foundation. Meanwhile, cracks developed on the right side of the dam between 1954 and 1959. They began as trickles, but grew into full-on leaks, which the operators chose to ignore. Torrential rain hit the area in late November of 1959. To avoid a catastrophe, dam guardian André Ferro asked to release some water. He was denied. Workers had just laid concrete pillars for a new bridge over the Réran River. Releasing the water could ruin their work. Defeated, André went home. While eating dinner, he heard a low growl and rumble coming from the dam, followed by the wrenching of metal. The dam had burst like a popping cork. André grabbed his family and ran to the nearest hill. They watched a 130-foot wall of water race toward the town of Fréjus at 43 miles per hour. They survived, but over 400 others weren't so lucky. The flood destroyed over 150 buildings, mostly in the villages below the dam. Some were just heading to bed when the tsunami ripped their homes from its foundation. The devastation reminded many of World War II. Photos from the scene looked like a Nazi bombing run. But this disaster wasn't caused by an evil dictator. It was the fault of greedy men who wanted to build the cheapest dam possible. And in case you're wondering, those precious concrete pillars were wiped away during the flood. Did you know there's a $100 billion ghost town on the southern tip of Malaysia? It was once billed as a dream paradise for all mankind. In reality, it was a secret offshore hub for wealthy Chinese people to park their money. Seaside property was expensive in places like Hong Kong and Shanghai. Forest City offered them affordable homes away from home. For the average everyday Malaysian, the prices were way too high. They couldn't help but smile when this wealthy man's paradise failed miserably. In 2016, China's largest property developer, Country Garden, unveiled their plans for Forest City. The $100 billion mega project had a bright future, with builders borrowing absurd amounts of money to get things off the ground. Wealthy Chinese buyers were ready to pounce. At the final hour, Communist leader Xi Jinping implemented strict currency controls, including a $50,000 cap on spending outside of China. In other words, it was illegal to buy overseas housing unless it was cheaper than $50,000. The average cost of a Forest City condo? About $1 million. Buyers pulled out left and right. Forest City quickly turned into Forest Ghost Town. Despite being $200 billion in debt, Country Garden remains optimistic. They believe Forest City still has a chance. As of 2023, they've only built 15% of the city and only 1% is occupied. As one resident told the BBC, "It's creepy and there's nothing to do here. There's a mall, but all the stores are closed. A creepy children's train drives in an endless circle, playing a Chinese rendition of Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes on a loop. The beach is littered with empty alcohol containers. The city is pitch black at night, with only a few apartment lights dotting the sky. Some people are the only ones living on their floor. Others are the only ones living in the building. But perhaps the most ironic feature is an enormous model of what the city was supposed to look like. It sits in a showcase room near the Ghost Mall and is guarded by two bored-looking employees. Above their heads, a sign reads, "Forest City, where happiness never ends." Yuli Township is a small community in southeastern Taiwan. It's home to about 22,000 people living between 15 villages. Most of them live on the east side of the Shuguluan River, a narrow waterway between the coastal and central mountains. They rely on 3 crossings to access Route 9 and thus the rest of Taiwan. One of those crossings was the 2,000-foot Gaoliao Bridge. Its central location in Yuli meant it saw the most traffic. Otherwise, drivers would have to travel about 4 miles south or 8 miles north to the next crossing, and nobody has time for that. But on September 19th of 2022, those 2 crossings were their only options. That's because a 6.8 magnitude earthquake rocked eastern Taiwan. It came only hours after a 6.4 magnitude tremor and was one of 17 earthquakes recorded within 48 hours. When it was over, all that remained of the Gaoliao Bridge was a twisted heap of concrete and metal. Drone footage shows pieces lying in the marshy riverbed. You might think you're watching footage of a new zombie movie. From the looks of it, at least half a mile had collapsed into the muddy riverbed below. It's kind of interesting how, despite the catastrophic failure, almost all of the asphalt was in perfect condition. You'd think that kind of movement would have cracked all the pavement, but from the video, it didn't do a thing. The only damage to the road itself happened in the parts that had not collapsed. Clearly, the pillars holding the bridge up were the point of failure. The damage left hundreds of people stranded in the mountain towns. Luckily, rescue crews could still reach and pull them from crumbling buildings. Thanks to earlier warnings, the bridge was practically empty when it collapsed. 3 vehicles did fall in, but all their occupants were okay. It's unclear how much it will cost to repair the bridge, or if there are any secret structural weaknesses. Like the Kinzua Bridge in Pennsylvania, this one fell victim to Mother Nature's raw power. Welcome to the Ujiapo Financial District, the future center of world trade on planet Earth. Located outside of Tianjin, China, its glorious buildings and modern architecture will leave places like Paris, London, and New York in the dust. Money will flow through the streets into hard-working pockets. It will be blissful, artful, beautiful, paradise. Too bad it's a ghost town. In 2008, China launched a $50 billion project to build its own Manhattan knockoff, equipped with a Rockefeller Center and a replica of the Twin Towers. They billed it as the world's largest financial center in the making. As of today, it looks more like a Lego set you got bored of and abandoned halfway through. About 120 miles outside of Beijing, Ujiapo has been idle since 2015. The city was supposed to be fully functional by 2019. It featured 164 million square feet of office space and a financial district that dwarfed Manhattan. Today, only about 20% of that space is occupied. The only things flowing through the streets are plastic bags. Construction cranes stand idle, having been abandoned since 2015. Half-finished buildings look like skeletons, and a massive shopping mall only has a handful of shoppers. There's even a pet store with no animals. Like other Chinese megaprojects, Ujiapo bet everything on the phrase, "Build it and they will come." When nobody showed up, they simply stopped building it. Now you've heard of Watergate, Russiagate, and Spygate. Now get ready for Nukegate. It's a classic tale about political ineptitude, greed, and wasteful spending. It's the story of how South Carolina basically set $9 billion on fire and stuck electric customers with the bill. It was 2008. Our two major players are South Carolina Electric and Gas, or SCE&G, and the South Carolina Public Service Authority, also known as Santee Cooper. The U.S. was on the brink of a nuclear renaissance. Between 2007 and 2009, 13 companies applied to build 31 new nuclear reactors around the country. South Carolina was right in the middle of it. The VC Summer Nuclear Station in Jenkinsville was already up and running. They just wanted to make it bigger. In 2009, they approved plans to build 2 new reactors at VC Summer for about $9 billion. Construction was slated for 2012, with the first reactor on pace to open in 2016. Westinghouse Electric Company, a Toshiba-owned company, was in charge of construction. Delays hindered the project from the start. Manufacturing hiccups, redesigns, and labor issues added another $1.2 billion to the project's cost. They were burning through money with little to show for it. By 2017, it was running over $25 billion. The worst part? The reactors would never produce a single watt of energy. Documents revealed that SCE&G and Santee Cooper knew the project was doomed about halfway through, yet they continued to siphon money from South Carolina. Westinghouse eventually declared bankruptcy, and all parties pulled out, leaving the South Carolina taxpayers footing the bill. But how? A new law passed in 2007 allowed utility companies to pass the construction risk onto their customers. Basically, they raised rates to fund the project instead of fronting the money themselves. Now, the people of South Carolina are billions of dollars in the hole with nothing to show for it. Corporate mismanagement and poor oversight mean families could be paying for the failed nuclear reactors until 2039. There's a reason that local Italians call Monte Toc the Walking Mountain. The 6,000-foot mountain on the border of Veneto and Friuli-Venezia Giulia is extremely landslide-prone. This should have worried engineers in the late 1950s when they decided to build a dam at the mountain's base. At 860 feet, the Vaillant Dam is among the tallest in the world. Its building created a reservoir on the Vaillant River, holding back 138,000 acre-feet of water, which is equal to over 170 million cubic meters. Construction began in the summer of '57 and was completed by 1960. As they filled the dam, worry spread that it would one day collapse. A local newspaper published a story suggesting that Monte Toc was the location of a massive ancient landslide. They said it was landslide-prone, and one occurring near the dam could spark disaster. The public was rightfully worried. So were the dam builders. They sued the newspaper for spreading misinformation. There would be no talk of landslides in these parts. By the summer of 1963, the reservoir measured 814 feet deep, the deepest it had ever been. In early October, one of the local mayors urged his townspeople to evacuate. He was worried for their safety as a landslide seemed imminent. Only a handful of people took him seriously. On October 9th, around 10:30 p.m., 260 million cubic meters of earth and rock fell from Monte Toc and landed in the reservoir. The displaced water triggered a monstrous tsunami wave that crashed over the dam and raced toward the villages below. Some say 50 million cubic meters of water wiped several villages off the map. Nearly 2,000 people perished in the disaster. The dam, however, remained intact and still stands today. Since the government owned the dam, they called it an act of God. Many didn't agree, saying they shouldn't have built the dam near a landslide-prone mountain. In the end, the Vaillant rockslide and subsequent tsunami went down as one of the worst natural disasters in Italian history. Just because you can dream it and draw it doesn't mean that you can build it. The failed Evergrande football stadium in Guangzhou, China is the perfect example. It was supposed to be the largest soccer-specific stadium in the world. The lotus flower design, inspired by the city's nickname, would attract fans of the Guangzhou Football Club. It would be seen for miles and hold about 100,000 people. It was ambitious, expensive, and doomed to fail. Construction on the $1.7 billion stadium began in April of 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic made things exceedingly difficult, especially given China's strict lockdown rules. Yet, they trudged ahead, with plans to open in 2022. The Evergrande Group, who was in charge of construction, refused to quit. Evergrande was once China's second largest property developer by sales. In 2018, they became the most valuable real estate company in the world. Today, they're the most indebted company in the world. They filed for U.S. bankruptcy in 2023 and were dissolved by court order in 2024. In 2021, the Chinese government seized the stadium and transferred it to a state-owned construction and investment firm. They officially pulled the plug in 2022. You see, 2022 was a bad year for Chinese real estate. Chinese companies like Evergrande invested in too many mega projects. Evergrande alone was over $300 billion in debt to thousands of banks, suppliers, and foreign investors. They single-handedly caused a massive property sector crisis. Today, the Lotus Flower Stadium remains less than half finished. It looks like someone ripped a finished stadium off the ground, leaving only the foundation behind. Think of it like the burned bits of food stuck to an ungreased baking sheet. Only those burned bits cost over $1.7 billion. The Kemper Power Plant is a $7.5 billion facility in Kemper County, Mississippi. It was supposed to be the future of cheap and clean energy. Officials from the UAE, Japan, and Norway marveled at its ingenuity. Its builder brazenly compared the technological complexities to the moon landing. The promise? Clean coal, or at least the idea that you could neutralize the harmful side effects of burning coal. Unfortunately, the entire project was a giant smokescreen. Kemper claimed they would burn lignite coal, the cheapest and least efficient form of coal on Earth. It's also the most abundant, meaning if you burn high quantities, you'll get similar results to natural gas. Yet somehow, it was going to be 100% carbon neutral. Politicians used all the right buzzwords to sell people on the power plant. It would create jobs and lessen our dependence on foreign oil. Governor Haley Barbour said it would bring hope and the promise of a brighter future to East Mississippi. The lie detector test determined that was a lie. Similar to the Nukegate scandal in South Carolina, officials in charge of the Kemper Power Plant knew it was doomed to fail. Documents revealed that they covered up construction problems and design flaws years before they pulled the plug. Also like Nukegate, the companies in charge exploited a new law allowing them to increase energy rates to pay for the new facility. Once again, taxpayers and innocent customers were left holding the bag. The problem with these laws is that companies can increase rates and collect money before construction finishes. Where is the incentive to build it on time and under budget if you can just keep milking people for cash? The plant was supposed to open its clean coal facility in 2014 and only cost $2.4 billion. By 2017, it hadn't burned a single rock and was another $5 billion over budget. In the end, Kemper switched to natural gas. If burning cash were a usable form of clean energy, these people would win a Nobel Prize. If you enjoyed this video and want to see another just like it, be sure to click the link on screen now. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.